I am Penelope, author of epic fantasy and paranormal romance, and welcome to my imaginary friends, a look behind the scenes of an author mapping the worlds in my head and making them a reality. Hello friends, today is Friday, November 6th, 2020, and this is episode 93 of My Imaginary Friends. I'm Leslie. So this week's best thing. I've just said the date. It is currently 12:47 p.m. Eastern Time on November 6th. And as of now, they have not called Nevada, Georgia, or Pennsylvania officially. So, and I'm not going to be the one to jinx it. But this week's best thing is hope and change. And I will leave it at that. By the time you listen to this, hopefully Nevada will be done counting votes and we'll know a little bit more definitively. But I did not have a lot of hope going into this election, and now I have some. So that is all I will say about that. Knock on wood, send out energy, pray, do whatever you need to do, whatever you have been doing, I'm sure. And yeah, by the time you listen to this, we will know more. Writing update. I am doing my soft NaNoWriMo, so I'm not logging into the website. I'm not updating it. I'm keeping my own spreadsheet as I do my first draft of my 1920s fantasy heist story. And man, I hate first drafts. I try to have a lot of positive energy about things, and I might be bringing too much negative energy and self-fulfilling prophecy to this, but I have never liked first drafts. It is my least favorite part of the writing process, and that has not changed. That being said, I think I've written, as of today, 14,000 words in November. I'm trying to get a minimum of the 1667 that you need daily, and I'd like to get a little ahead, even though I'm planning to write daily, and for the past 6 days I've been doing well, but I know that I don't generally write every single day, even in NaNoWriMo. So I'm building up so that I can, have some wiggle room for unexpected things or just basic exhaustion. I have been able to write this week throughout the uncertainty and the stress and strain of election news and lack thereof, but I've been basically ignoring the news. My husband will turn it on. I check my app once or twice a day. And then other people seem to want to tell me the news. And I'm like, I don't want to know. I want to know when it's done. Just don't nobody tell me no bad news. To quote the Woes. Yes. But I've been waking up every morning at 8, like always. Well, not waking up at 8, but meeting my friend, Inez Johnson, at 8 a.m. on Google Hangouts and sprinting. Generally, we do 20-minute sprints, and I can usually get 1,000 words in 20 minutes. Sometimes it's less if I'm slogging through it, nothing's flowing. Sometimes more if it's flowing really well. So we'll do 2 to 3 sprints, and I will get between up to 3,000 words. Like today I got 3,000 words, which is not usual. Usually it's about 2,000 words a day I've been averaging this week. And that's pretty normal for me. And so I just do a scene a day, and my scenes are basically chapters. But I don't like to call them chapters because I move chapters around up until the moments before I turn it into my editor. I don't really know what a chapter is. Like, I know a scene is a discrete thing. A chapter could be a scene, or it could be 2 or 3 or 4 scenes. And so I generally just speak in scenes. But I'm labeling them as chapters, which the internal inconsistency. But yeah. So how I'm going about this, doing the fast draft, I will start each day with my index cards. So I do an index card per scene, and I basically map out the scene on it as much as I can. Some of these index cards are not as full as others. Like, there'll be just gaps. I know you can't see this if you're on the video, but there's a gap. For some of the points. But the things that I try to put on the index cards are the desire of the scene, the inciting incident, which is often something that happened in a previous scene, the progressive complications, the turning point, the crisis, the climax, and the resolution. The problem is that a lot of these scenes that I had placed in my outline don't have a lot of those things. And I'm like, what was I doing when I was outlining this? I thought I was writing, scenes. And my outline for each scene is about, a paragraph or so of description of what happens in it. And I thought that, I actually didn't go back and check and make sure that everything had conflict in it. I was just ready to write, which is fine, which is at this early stage in the process, it's all good, It just doesn't feel good. Like, it's pulling teeth, this first draft. I am not in the flow state most of the time. I wrote chapter 13 today. I think it wasn't until chapter 12 that anything remotely flowed, which is why my word counts are lower than usual. Because in 20 minutes, if I'm flowing, I can get 1,500 words. If I'm not flowing, it'll be 700 words or 800 words. And I'm constantly battling the urge to go back and revise and fix things. I have a standing request / order of my two mastermind compatriots. If I ever start talking about going back and editing when I'm doing a first draft, you must stop me. I instituted this 2 or 3 books ago, and every time I'm doing a first draft, I'm battling up against it. I want to go back and revise. It feels terrible to write these words and know that they're all wrong, or feel or strongly suspect that so many of them are wrong. It's not coming out the way I want it to come out. It's not coming out. Like, I'm really just laying bricks here. I am writing people going into rooms, saying things to each other, leaving, and it's not the magic of storytelling. And I know that that doesn't come until the second draft. Like, how many books have I written? I don't know, 10, 15, if you count the novellas. I should count them. But, this is not my first rodeo. I've done this for many years, and I have the same problems every time I do this. So I'm not going back and revising, and I'm just working through it. I'm putting my boots on and walking through the shit, like my grandmother used to say. And laying the bricks and writing the story and knowing that I will figure it out. I will make it pretty. I will make it not just pretty, like, it's not just ugly right now. It is, it's a slog. And there is this strong part of me that wants to go back and figure out, why am I slogging through this? Why does it feel so wrong? What can I do to make it better? And those are all good impulses, but not during the first draft. Not for me. The times when I have given in to the impulse and gone back and revised when I'm supposed to be first drafting, it has not gone well. It is not my process. It's not how my brain works. And I do try to rely on intuition a lot of times. And I talk about that, but there are times when you have to work against your own intuition because it is leading you astray. So I know that I have a decent outline, a synopsis, My agent has gone through it. We've submitted it. Like, it's solid. The story I'm trying to tell is solid. I know how to write a scene. I mean, I'm doing the things that I always do, diagramming it out beforehand, knowing what I'm writing it during the first draft. I'm just trying to pinpoint exactly what is going on. But I just know I have to resist this temptation. It's better if I figure these things out while I'm writing, because I'm still changing the story as I go. Like, I'm discovering things. I mean, the good thing is that the fast drafts are working as advertised, and I'm envisioning the story. I'm learning things about the characters and the plot and the world as I go. And the only way I know these things is by laying the bricks, is by doing the drafts. So the thing that would happen if I went back and start revising these first 12 chapters and trying to polish them and figure out, make them feel good, is that the end of the book would never arrive. Or I would polish it so much that once I did get to the end, I would come back to the beginning with all that knowledge that I don't have right now and change it again anyway. So it would be a waste of time and effort, and it would potentially lock things into my mind that are not set in stone. Nothing is set in stone during the first draft. I have the option to change everything. Everything's on the table. Because with every scene I write, I learn something new. I discover something new about the characters and their motivations, even the backstory, I just sit down and it comes out and I'm like, oh, he was raised by his grandfather and his mother wasn't around. Like, I knew his mother was gone, but I hadn't gotten so far as to figure out who was actually raising him while his mom was out gallivanting, and it was his grandfather, and he respected him. And then when his mom came back, there was conflict. I just discovered that today while I was writing. So who knows what I'll find out tomorrow and next week. And that is why I don't need to go back and revise. I need to go forward and finish the story and then figure out how to turn this pile of doo-doo into a pristine, wonderful book that everyone will want to read. I have been using the Freewrite Traveler to draft, and it's been going well. I always have like an insane amount of typos when I draft. I type really fast, but rather poorly, apparently. And I'm trying to decide if I'm typing worse on the Freewrite than on the AlphaSmart. It feels like it's a little bit worse. I mean, it's always bad, but getting used to a new keyboard, and even though I really do like the keyboard, it requires a little bit more pressure to press. So I miss the space bar a lot. Like I'll press it, but I'm not pressing it hard enough. And a lot of the words are running together. And so the only thing I do after each scene is I bring the document into Scrivener, and I go through and fix the typos so I can actually get an accurate word count. I don't change anything. I just separate the words that I, miss the space bar on, and fix the spelling of anything with a little red squiggly under it. I leave all my fragments, my sentence fragments, I don't even read the thing. I just look for the red squigglies and fix those words. And then I use that word count. Even though it's probably still not accurate because I haven't read it. There might be other issues that didn't flag the spell check. But yeah. So it might not be any worse, my typing. I just notice it more because it is egregious. I don't know what's wrong with me. But with the fast draft, I'm typing super fast, and I miss a lot of words. I do THE instead of the. And another thing I was thinking is that in this first draft, it feels really bad, and I feel disconnected from it, and it just doesn't feel like it's coming out the way I envisioned it. But there's also no blood on the page, and that's really important for me to have an emotional connection to what I'm writing. And there's not the opportunity for blood on the page yet because I'm still figuring out the story, and it's just the first fast draft. But being able to identify sort of why I'm feeling this way, and that kind of helps me hold myself back again from going in and rewriting. Like, there's no way for me to have that strong emotional connection while I'm still figuring it out, while I'm still building the scaffolding or the skeleton. What's it called when you have the skeleton of the building? The frame, I guess. I'm building the frame. So I can't paint the walls because there's no walls. It's just a frame. So I'm going to keep going, keep drafting, probably keep feeling bad about it. I've also been playing around with the things I was talking about a couple weeks ago, like the narrative voice. I'm writing it in third person. I tried for one chapter to do it in first person, and that quickly went awry. So that's not happening. I'm flirting with omniscient narrator, and that is something I haven't done before. But that actually is starting to feel a little bit better. But, no promises. I'm experimenting with a lot of things, and that's another good thing about doing the fast draft. So I can test things out during a chapter, knowing I'm rewriting that chapter anyway. So if I have to change the POV back to some other way, or the point of the tense, or the perspective to something else later on, that's fine. So it's a testing ground, and just have to keep telling myself that over and over again, probably for the whole month. Our featured podcast this month is Boobies and Newbies, and I will let you hear a word from them.
Hey everybody, it's Kelly, host of Boobies and Newbies, part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Every episode, I invite a romance reading newbie to read and review their very first romance novel, alongside me, a self-proclaimed romance novel addict. We're talking everything from bisexual pegging. We need more pegging on TV. We need it in books. We need it in real life. We need to talk about it. To the deepest intricacies of relationships. It really is like we're fighting for us.
Yes.
Like let's
That's
fight.
Beautiful.
We cover it all. Find and follow us on social media at Boobies Podcast, and catch up on previous episodes on your favorite podcast streaming platform.
In other news and tools, One of the tools that I use all the time is called MasterWriter. It's masterwriter.com. And they just redid their user interface because it was pretty clunky before. Worked fine. It was just weird. But it's gotten a big facelift and it looks a lot better. I think it's a little easier to use. So I will put a link to the show notes. I'm not an affiliate. It's just something that I use all the time, not doing fast drafts, but doing my polishing and revision. MasterWriter is like a thesaurus on steroids. It's got a great dictionary, thesaurus, rhyming dictionary, word families. You can use it to write music and I use it a lot when I'm doing the poetry, when I'm doing the chapter epigraphs, which often are poetry. And I will use like the rhyme dictionary. It's got a lot of other features that I don't use, but are super cool. But I found that the actual synonyms, the thesaurus that it has is way better than the other online thesauruses that I have used. So masterwriter.com, it is paid. I've checked the pricing on it, but I find that it's worth it for the books that I write, and I use it all the time. So in other news of the publishing world, the author world is all aflame about some shenanigans that Audible is pulling. Apparently, Audible customer support is advising people to return audiobooks to get their credit back and then use it again. This is highly unethical, and it means that the author doesn't get paid for the audiobook. I don't know why Audible is actually recommending this, that they're turning their service into some sort of library and shafting the authors. For an independent author to create an audiobook is extremely expensive. It's several $100s per finished hour, like $200 to $400 for some of the narrators per finished hour. So look at an 8 or 10 hour audiobook. I mean, it's thousands of dollars. So, and then the pricing, the way that we get paid from audiobooks is from Audible. I mean, you're getting a tiny amount of money per listen. I don't even know how it's done because I haven't personally produced any audiobooks for my self-published stuff. But authors spend a lot of money and time doing the audiobooks, and then some authors are seeing a lot of returns. I heard of one author who saw 200 audiobooks returned in one day, which is crazy. And it really does affect the bottom line. I mean, if you're spending a couple $1,000s on an audiobook and you know it's going to take a few months or a few years to earn that back, and then Audible is turning around and being like, hey, listeners, just return it and get your credit back and listen to something else. Like, that's not a good business partner. So we can't change Audible. There are various movements and machinery in place trying to affect them. But if you are an audiobook listener and you have seen this recommended or gotten this recommendation, please do not do that. Do not return an audiobook if you didn't like it or for a reasonable reason. But just using Audible as your own personal library is damaging to authors and, to the whole ecosystem. And it's just not cool. So spread the word. We watched the first episode of The Mandalorian. By the time this comes out, the second one will be out. I don't even know what day it comes out, but I wanted to wait and binge them together. And my husband was like, oh, there's too many spoilers online. And he's on social media way more than I am. So I cracked and we watched the first one. And luckily, they don't seem to be serialized too much. I mean, they're serialized, but it's not like a cliffhanger at the end where you're like, what's going to happen? There was a nice, reveal at the end of the first one. You were like, wait, is that? I looked at him, he answered me, and we're like, oh. So yeah, the first one was cool. And because we had actually read Chuck Wendig's Aftermath series, and so Timothy Oliphant is a guest star on the first episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian, and that character appeared in one of those books. So when he came on, Jared was like, oh, that's so-and-so. And I was like, oh, I remember him. Anyway, it's like deep cuts, And yeah, I'm added that to the rotations. I'm still watching Leverage, still watching Hustle. I was calling it Hustlers, but the TV show is called Hustle. The British version of Leverage, basically. And that's it right now. I haven't been reading as much because I have to do a lot of reading as research for this heist novel. So I've got library books that are stressing me out because I know they're going to be due soon and they're thick and I want to get through them. And I've got audiobooks, research that I'm doing so I haven't been reading as much for pleasure, but I hope that changes soon. Anyway, that is it for me for this week. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next week. For episode show notes and to sign up for the Footnotes newsletter and get the show notes in your inbox, go to myimaginaryfriendsshow.com. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and watch the video episodes on YouTube. I would appreciate a rating or review to help support the show, and My Imaginary Friends is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. For more fantastic podcasts, go to frolic.media/podcasts.